Chapter 6 continued. Safely on the west side of the house, the three young friends stood looking out over the landscape before them. Acres of thick, spiky bush with deceptively friendly yellow flowers seemed to spread for miles. It's called gorse. Google it. However, this type of brown, thorny evergreen bush is not at all welcoming to grown-ups or curious explorers, but provides fierce protection for little birdies and other smaller creatures seeking shelter in the undergrowth. Tarzan pointed over to a section of gorse which seemed to reveal an unreachable little haven somewhere out in the middle. "Hey, do you see that clearing over there?" The others spotted it too. "Cool! How would we ever get through?" wondered Hugo aloud. Tarzan got down on his hands and knees. Peering low, he inspected the edge of the thistly jungle. "Hey guys, come check this out," he called excitedly, beckoning the others to himself. "You can see kind of trails beneath the bushes. I think we can do it if we stay low enough." This is an adventure for kids. "Oh no, do we have to?" worried Melody. With her clumsy track record, she had good reason to be concerned for her health and safety. But once again, it was Hubert who needed to be concerned. With his extra bulk, it was he who was about to be prickled and poked by defensive spiky needles attempting to keep the unwelcome intruders out. Tarzan went in first, with Melody reluctantly following. Huey struggled in last. It was a tight fit. Crawling and wriggling, mostly wriggling, carefully over moss, branches, and bugs, they had to work really hard at not getting too scratched or maimed. The smell of dank dirt up their noses, Tar and Mel silently made their way, eyes straining forward. Passing thick brown stalks twisting upwards, the sudden sounds of small birds flapping away from their violated fortress reached their ears. It was a strange new world not many had ever experienced before. From somewhere further behind, they could hear Hugo breathing heavily and complaining. His clothes were constantly getting snagged by annoying thorny tentacles, semi-dried vom, a magnet for dust and dirt. "Guys, wait for me," he whined miserably. It was just too cramped in there for him. Every stalk, branch, and vine seemed to close in on him tighter and tighter. He knew he was going to fatigue far too quickly in his struggle just to move forwards a few feet. Every effort he made was just that, an effort. Hubert could feel his heart pounding faster and harder inside his throat, despite his wavering attempts to keep himself calm. "Please let this be over soon," he pleaded, desperately wanting to be free of the overwhelming horror of feeling trapped. Sweat began surfacing on his forehead, both from the physical strain as well as the emotional strain of knowing that if they died in there, no one would ever find their missing corpses. They all pushed on for quite some time, following animal runs made by wild hares. Sunlight was occasionally allowed to peek down through the branches into their shaded, wooded tunnels below. Once or twice they felt lost and chose to circle back a ways, and sometimes they could go no further and were forced to turn around altogether, which, given the limited space for maneuverability, was next to impossible. Thankfully, they eventually came across what they'd been searching for. "I think I see it," encouraged Tarzan from the front. Up ahead, he sensed a thinning of the brush and hastily led the way. "Yep, this is it." One after the other, they all squeezed out of the dense jungle, like toothpaste oozing from a tube, into the wide open space before them. "Oh man, I am so glad to be out of there," said Tarzan, rolling clear of the thorns. That was getting closet-phobic. Hugo was 137% in full agreement. You're telling me, he exhaled loudly. I hate closet phobia. I think you guys mean claustrophobia, said Mel with a giggle. You're not really afraid of closets, are you? Depends how small they are, I guess, joked Tar. And if there's a psycho madman clown mask-wearing murder killer hiding inside, said Hugo quite seriously. Grateful for the opportunity to finally stand up and stretch, they stopped and looked around, while brushing off dirt and twigs from their clothes. They were now standing in a secluded clearing spanning only a few meters across. All around them, of course, was a wall of gorse, about head-high, shielding them from any inquisitive eyes from beyond. What a neat hiding spot, Tarzan and Hugo agreed, jumping up and down, attempting to catch a glimpse of the outside world. A little ways off, one side of the Harrowing house was visible. Melody wandered curiously about, picking up a stick and poking casually at the ground. At the furthest edge of the seclusion, slightly covered by earth and rotted vegetation, she noticed something colorful peeping out. She knelt down and tugged at a dirty piece of tartan fabric, unearthing an old blanket. Well, look what I found, discovered Melody. This must have been left here years ago. What is it? The boys came running over. I think it's a picnic blanket, she showed them, holding up the tattered material covered in black moldy stains and large ragged holes. Watching his sister spreading the mangy blanket onto the ground before them, Huey was vividly reminded of his own torn apparel. Who would crawl all the way in here just for a picnic, he said in disbelief, tenderly rubbing the recently incurred wealth of cuts and scrapes spread all over his shoulders and arms. Having knelt down to smooth the blanket, Melody then spotted something bulky off to her right. And look, here's a basket. She started pulling at an old wicker container stashed just inside the brush wall. Tarzan rushed to help. What's in it? He asked eagerly. Successfully retrieving the picnic basket from the tangle of branches, together they set it down in the middle of the blanket, Tarzan imagining they were about to enjoy their very own romantic date. Melody carefully opened the lid, peering cautiously inside, and began lifting out the contents, placing them down one at a time. 2 dirty wine glasses? Check, said Tarzan unnecessarily. Some old camping cutlery? Check. 2 moldy cloth napkins? Check. A couple of camping plates? Check. And an empty wine bottle she inventoried. And check. I wonder who they were, Hugo spoke, imagining the answer with the others. Thoughts of historic figures with a romantic story to tell, and secretive pirates on a dangerous rendezvous, or a juvenile couple skipping school for a day, floated and materialized from the minds of the fantasizing children and into their collective reality as shared words, and then swiftly back into each other's minds for further creative speculation. Avast, matey! Cried Tarzan to Hugo, tying one of the filthy napkins over his head. Where have ye buried your treasure? Then, grabbing one of the butter knives, he lunged forward in mock swordplay. Hugo, not missing the moment, also scooped up a stainless steel spoon and parried with his treacherous opponent. Take that, and that! You'll never find it, you fiend! Cling clang. Och, I know it be hidden in this here secret circle somewhere. Clank clink. Why would I be so daft as to lead you straight to my hiding spot? Be gone, ye scaly wag. Boys, get off the blanket. You're wrecking the lovely picnic, protested Melody. Captain Tarzan of the Desert Isles and One-Eyed Hugo of the 70 Seas battled each other to the death while tromping all over the mysterious setting, plates and camping cutlery scattering everywhere. Dad looked up from his book, roused by the sounds of hoots and hollers from his kids coming from somewhere outside his window. He got up from his armchair, opened the window, and peered outside, looking down on the shrubs of gorse. At least, That's what he thought it was called. You might have to Google it. He detected playful scuffling coming from within a small clearing just off in the near distance. Smiling to himself, he closed the window and went back to his comfy chair to continue his reading. Melody carefully gathered up the scattered dishes and stored them safely back in the basket. Gathering up the soiled blanket the boys had finished stomping all over, she folded it neatly as she could and placed it on top of the wicker. One-eyed Hugo and Captain Tarzan lay mutually vanquished. Imaginary blood pooled over the X that marked the spot, gradually seeping down into the ground and onto the hidden treasure chest buried 6 feet under. It would have to wait another 111 years for a chance to be discovered. "I think we need to start back home now, you guys," voiced Melody wisely, storing the mysterious artifacts where she'd found them. "And I think I've found an easier way out." Captain Tar groggily came back to life. After tearing up the ancient treasure map, he told his talking pet parrot to fly off and never come back. One-eyed Hugo, still hanging on to the last shred of their game, threw his eye patch into the bush and limped with his slashed peg leg to where his sister had been referring to. "Arr," he growled. "What tall tales be ye spreading here, lassie?" "Look, here," she pointed. "It's quite overgrown, but I think this used to be a proper path. We'll still have to crawl through, but surely this will be easier than the way we came in." "Stellar," agreed Tarzan, and, once again, getting down on all fours, began leading the way out.